Hello and welcome to Film Franchise Fortnights on the Cult Popture podcast. My name is AJ.
And my
who's
name
this?
is...
Well, continue.
Richard.
You're a cute little boy, aren't you?
Yep, that's me.
What are you doing?
I'm small.
Where are your parents?
They're listening to this.
So for those who have never listened to this show before, this is a show where Richard and I watch an entire film franchise in one fortnight and then we discuss it. And this episode, we're talking about Kung Fu Panda, the Kung Fu Panda trilogy. But before we get to that, I do just want to give a quick thank you to all those who filled out our survey that we put up. You can still go do it now. Richard's clapping. There you go. Good on you, Richard.
Golf clap, though.
So you can go and fill that out still if you want. I mean, we'll take any feedback we can get. It will be a touch outdated, though, at this point, because we have launched the Patreon that the survey suggested we were going to do. So if you want to give us a very small amount of money, let's be honest, for some pretty exclusive content, then you can do that. What's something you can do on the Patreon, Richard? Give me an example.
Well, for as little as $1 a month, that's right, for only $1 on the first of every month, you will be billed $1. You can have the ability to comment on a post and vote for what we should do for every second episode of Film Franchise Fortnights. So, if you are a huge fan of, say,
Stuart Little, you go on and be like, do Stuart Little next, and then if people like that and we choose it and that ends up being the most liked comment that week, we'll do it. We'll cover Stuart Little, and it's that easy. We will.
And that's only for $1 a month. Think about it. If you had $1, if you once a month just lost $1, you wouldn't even go looking for it.
I actively throw away $1 once per month.
And that's what you can do if you join our Patreon. Actively throw away $1 a month.
And for $5 a month, you can get an exclusive new podcast called Film Franchise Follow-Ups, where we explore the extended media universe of a franchise that we have previously covered. So that'll be one episode of Film Franchise Follow-Ups a month, and for $10 a month, you get generic movie_podcast.exe, where we'll review a movie that you tell us to watch. It could be 120 Days of Sodom. We don't have any say in this.
You can tell us Limitless.
Yep. One of those two. The only rule we have to be
one of those two.
The only rule we have for that is that it cannot be a franchise film, because we like to save them for this main show.
Yeah.
And the last bit of admin before we get to the wonderful, the gorgeous Kung Fu Panda is next week. The episode of the Cult Poppish podcast next week is going to be on what movies deserve a TV show adaptation, and we want to hear from you. So if you have an idea, please send a 30 to 90 second pitch to cultpoptionmedia@gmail.com. I feel like we need to just get into Kung Fu Panda, Richard. Can we do that, please?
Yes, but do we have any up-top random trivia to begin with?
Well, some of the feedback we got for Up Top Random Trivia is that it's not very good up top, is it? Because it's the first thing people hear, and if they've never listened before, they're like, I don't care. So Up Top Random Trivia is a bit further down the list, and maybe we should call it middle, lower top. Top.
Okay.
Random trivia. So, today we are covering the Kung Fu Panda franchise. In essence, this is a trilogy, so far at least, that follows a panda named Po, voiced by Jack Black, and he's an unlikely hero who's thrown into the world of Kung Fu madness after being inexplicably hailed the Dragon Warrior, aka the Chosen One, by a senile old tortoise. I wrote this. This is my discourse. Making sure all this is correct. The Kung Fu Panda trilogy is one of DreamWorks Animation's flagship franchises and could be seen as kind of the quintessential DreamWorks series, at least by today's standards, as it mixes the silly and wacky aesthetics of Shrek or Madagascar with the lore-heavy narrative of something like How to Train Your Dragon.
Right, yeah.
So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at Kung Fu Panda, KFP. Kung Fu Panda, the first film, Kung Fu Panda, 2008. That was directed by John Stevenson and Mark Osborne. What does that have on Rotten Tomatoes, do you reckon,
I'm
Richard?
going to say like 87.
That's exactly right. So accurate, in fact, that I feel like you looked it up already. What is Kung Fu Panda about?
Well, okay. I'll come clean right at the top of the podcast. Because
I didn't watch Kung Fu Panda.
because I had been posting the
that you?
Instagram posts for Kung Fu Panda. I thought I was doing the research for it. So when I messaged you today and said, hey, have you got a piece of up top trivia for Kung Fu Panda? That's because I was halfway through writing all the info for it. And they'd be like, I haven't done Kung Fu Panda yet. And I was like, wait, are you doing it? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll just stop doing it then.
Oh, if you'd said, I wouldn't have done it, because this took me hours. It's not even that. It's not like particularly more in depth. I was just real tired, so I really just slogged through it. All right, so what is Kung Fu Panda 2008
so
about?
you kind of gave the premise there. So yeah, this guy Po, he's a panda. He's a big fan of kung fu, and he gets chosen accidentally. Well, we think accidentally. By a senile old tortoise to be the dragon warrior, which is the chosen one, and then reluctantly Shifu, who's like a red panda, who's like the master, has to train him because like his hands are bound by like the prophecy of the dragon master. And then there's a villain called, I always forget the villain's name,
Tai Lung,
who's a leopard.
Snow leopard,
who, thought that he was the rightful dragon master, dragon warrior. So then Po and Tai Lung have to fight each other.
Yeah. And fun fact, the snow leopard is actually a natural predator of both the panda and the red panda in real life. So that's a neat little thing there.
Wow.
So the second film to come out in the Kung Fu Panda trilogy was called Kung Fu Panda 2.
I've heard of Kung Fu Panda, but this is ridiculous.
That one came out in 2011. It's directed by Jennifer Yu Nelson, I think is how you pronounce it. And would you perchance know what that has on Rotten Tomatoes, Richard?
I'm guessing 83?
No.
86.
Pathetic. It's 81.
81.
Fuck. And what is Kung Fu Panda 2 about?
So there's now a villain after defeating Tai Lung. Po's now kind of one of the warriors, but there's a villainous peacock voiced by Gary Oldman, and his name is
Lord Shen.
And yeah, they've got a bit of a connection, Lord Shen and Po, because Po never knew his real parents. But Lord Shen has like patterns on his peacock feathers, and when Po sees them, he gets visions of his parents, and he realizes that Shen was there when Po was abandoned, shall we say. And then they have to fight, and
That's a good summary. So fun fact about Kung Fu Panda 2, it is currently the second biggest worldwide box office success for a movie directed solely by a woman after Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman came out last year, and this came out in 2011, meaning that for a time, this was the biggest worldwide box office success for a movie directed solely by a woman. Kung Fu Panda 3, that's right, there's 3 of them. That came out in 2016, and that was directed by Jennifer Yu Nelson and Alessandro Carloni, thus invalidating them from being the next movie solely directed by a woman to be the biggest box office success.
Did it gross more than the second one?
Oh, fuck, dude, I don't know. You find that out. No, I'll find that out while you tell us what the Rotten Tomatoes score is.
This is 83,
what it's about. Yeah. No, 86.
86. Fuck. All right, yeah. So this one is about. So at the end of the last film, we found out that Poe's father is still alive, and there's a whole colony of pandas, because it's established, like, in this... Is it the second one we find out that there are, like, no other pandas? Or is it the first one?
Yeah, they say it like we knew that already, but I don't remember being told that.
Anyway, yeah, so Poe's father, voiced by Bryan Cranston, comes into town looking for his son, and they get reunited, and there's a new villain in town called...
Kai?
Kai, yeah. Who's
I think his name's
like
Kai,
Lord Kai or something? Anyway.
No, it's not, he's not a lord.
Alright, but his whole thing is like chi, so he deals with like, spirit and energy and things like that, and he can like steal people's chi and make them into like a jade warrior zombie or zombie, and fight, do his bidding. And apparently the pandas were like masters of chi, so Poe's dad is like, come with me, I'll take you and I'll teach you the secrets of chi. And then there's a big, the Tai comes to town. Kai. It comes to town and wants to fight all the pandas, but Poe has learnt that being the dragon warrior is all about being yourself, and he becomes the true dragon warrior.
Yeah.
And we also, it's revealed that like it wasn't just an accident. He was chosen as the Dragon Warrior because pandas are masters of chi, and the Dragon Warrior is the one destined to defeat Kai, who can only be defeated like in the spirit realm and chi. And
it's a nice little circle back round for the trilogy. Yes. Kung Fu Panda 3 made the least of the trilogy. The first two made over 6 million, whereas Kung Fu Panda 3 only made just over 5 million, which I would chalk up to maybe...
That's just domestic, presumably.
No, that's worldwide. So I would say that's probably because maybe the audience was grown up by the time that the third one came out, or maybe it's more like
that's good
the... I don't know. I feel like the type of movie that Kung Fu Panda is kind of faded away, and we're getting more Lego movies and things like that are a bit more snappier than something like Kung Fu Panda, which is a more traditional kids DreamWorks kind of movie. I don't know. That's pure speculation, and it could mean nothing.
Wait, so, I don't know where you got, because I don't know where you got your numbers from, but like a movie making $6 million is pitiful.
It must be 6 billion then.
No, that would be the highest grossing film of all time. The Kung Fu Panda 3 had a total worldwide gross of 521 million. Kung Fu Panda.
I'm looking at it right now. I don't know what you want me to say. It's here. It's worldwide. What number is this? 521,170,825.
That's 521 million.
Ah, there you go. All right, so there, just put 100 on the end of what I said. 600 million and 500 million. AJ wasn't right.
Okay, that doesn't make you right by being like, it made $5 million.
I said wasn't right.
Like, you haven't won here, AJ.
I said wasn't right. And those listening to my end of the audio would have heard me say wasn't. I just said it very quietly. So...
Yeah, no, I know you, like, you're backtracking, but you're like, yeah, just add 100. It's like, no, that's like...
I wasn't not just a Richard, listen to me, dude. I'm not listening. I'm taking
my headphones out.
I wasn't shaming you out. He actually has taken his headphones out. I wasn't shaming him out. I was explaining how to rectify my horrible mistake. Up top, random trivia.
Put my headphones back in.
So this is our second Jackie Chan / Lucy Liu franchise that we've covered on the podcast after Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, and our second DreamWorks animation franchise after Shrek. This is our 10th trilogy, if you count Pup Stars as its own trilogy, and also if you count the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, which we included the 2 Amazing Spider-Man films in that podcast, but it is its own trilogy. This is our second franchise, which apparently... This is such a hard one to read. These statistics get so... These pieces of trivia get so stupid. This is our second franchise, which apparently did such a good job of representing cultural icons foreign to the filmmakers themselves that the nation in which the film represents was forced to ask why Americans were better than themselves and making movies about their own mythology. The first being Godzilla. Does that make sense? So, Shin Godzilla, correct me, I vaguely remember this. Shin Godzilla was made as a response to Godzilla 2014, the American one, being such a good film was like, oh, we can do a Godzilla film even better.
Yeah, but it's not. It wasn't like they captured the culture so well. It was just like, oh, people think Godzilla's good. Let's see, like,
right.
When we do, you'll see a good one.
This was more the Chinese film industry were like, why is this better than what we can make? They're not even from here. They're not even from around here. Was that a Hot Fuzz reference? Yeah, it was. I was trying to figure out where that was. I started going in for Mean Girls with You Don't Even Go Here.
And then I was like, oh, you fucked this up.
I was like, no, Hot Fuzz, that's the better reference to make. Hot Fuzz, that's where the reference stocks are increasing. This is also our second franchise that features an animal becoming a master of a typically human sport/craft after Air Bud. And is a panda learning kung fu more impressive than a dog that can play basketball?
Hell yes.
However,
that would definitely make the papers.
The dogs live in a human world, whereas the animals live in a anthropomorphic animal world.
That's true.
So really, it's not that amazing at all. So Air Bud still wins. This next statistic isn't about our podcast specifically, but it is about Kung Fu Panda that I thought was the type of thing that we on the show kind of revel in. And it's kind of in the lifeline of talking about franchises as an art. So Kung Fu Panda came out in 2008, and as of 2016, it is the only animated film of DreamWorks that became a franchise to not have a consistent gap between the release of its sequels. Since Kung Fu Panda 2 came out 3 years later in 2011, and Kung Fu Panda 3 came out in 2016 after 5 years. Shrek's sequels all came out 3 years apart from 2001 to 2010. Madagascar's sequels all came out 3.5 years apart, 2005 to 2012, and How to Train Your Dragon's sequels came out 4.5 years apart, so 2010 to 2019.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Like, 'cause it's like I feel like Shrek had a massive gap, but it was pretty consistent.
Well, when I was,
I guess, like the growing up you do between Shrek 2 and Shrek 3 is
yeah, agreed. When I was writing down the stats for this, the little intro that I set up the top, I originally wrote, I was trying to be real smart and observant, and I was like, Kung Fu Panda bridges the gap between the old ways of Shrek and the new ways of How to Train Your Dragon. But it's not, because they all came out so inconsistently that they encroach on each other's patterns too much, that there's no like, they stopped making Shrek and then made Kung Fu Panda. It's like, no, halfway through Shrek, Madagascar came out, and then before the last Shrek had even come out, the first Kung Fu Panda had come out, and How to Train Your Dragon came out a year later. So it was like, oh, this isn't consistent at all.
I have another up top random trivia.
Tell me it.
This is our second franchise which features no human characters.
What was the first?
Land Before Time.
Very good.
I was thinking Happy Feet, but then humans appear at the end.
That's true. How would you rank these films, Richard? What was your favorite?
I would probably go 1, 3, 2. What would you go?
Interesting. Well, the Cinema Score website rated these films A-, respectively, which I'm more inclined to agree with. I would rate them 3, 2, 1.
Right.
So we're going to have an argument. You ready?
Yeah, I don't know, like...
maybe I actually think maybe it was because I had seen Kung Fu Panda 1 already. I'd never seen the sequel, so maybe it's a little less fresh. But I thought the first one, and I'll get into my problems with it later, I thought the first one was fine. I thought the second one had a real good villain, so I really enjoyed the like setup there. And I thought the third one like really was a really nice story and villain and characters and experience altogether.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably agree with that. I'd seen the first one once as well, like probably in like 2008 or 9, like just after it came out. I watched it. It was like a real shitty rip of it. I watched it on like in my iPod Classic. So yeah, and it was like one of those things. Like I remember everyone at school was like, "There's no charge for awesomeness or attractiveness," which is like his first line in the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like. So when I finally got around to watching it was one of those things that I kind of wanted to like be like, this is overrated, but it's like it's just a nice little film. And then yeah, it has really interesting sequels. I don't know, maybe Yeah, I mean, I could easily be convinced that
Yeah.
of any way to order these films because, like, this is probably one of the most consistent franchises we've covered, I'd say.
Definitely, like trilogies. You don't often. How often is the third movie on a trilogy the best one? So you brought up something that we should talk about. Actually, I haven't got this written down, but there are a lot of like catchphrases in this film, very Jack Blackian. They kind of threw as much as they could at a wall and saw what stuck. But I feel like that adds to the kind of growing cringiness I feel this film is going to feel like in a few years. Because you know how like
Skadoosh.
You know the Rick and Morty phenomenon, right? How like if someone tells you they're Pickle Rick, you're like, oh, shut the fuck up, this is so lame. Even though you might like Rick and Morty, someone quoting Rick and Morty is like off. You know, you're not allowed to do it anymore. And maybe it's because Kung Fu Panda isn't exactly my target demographic, but I remember watching. This would have been 10 years ago, watching Sticky TV, which is a show you're very familiar with, Richard. And Sticky TV, for those who don't know, is like an after-school show in New Zealand that was on for a while.
Well, it was.
Yeah,
for those of you that don't... Huh?
I said was, and then you're like, well, it was. And I was like... Ugh.
No, you said is.
Rewind the tape. Sticky TV, for those who don't know, is like an after-school show in New Zealand that was on for a while. Whatever. What were you going to say?
Anyway, and for those of you that don't know me personally, I worked on it for 2 years. So that's why I know it well.
They would have sections where kids would come on the show and do talent shows and shit like that, correct?
Yeah,
without getting into
not when
specifics.
I was there, but yeah, that did happen.
Yeah. So I remember one kid coming on and he had to like answer a few things about himself so the audience could get to know him. And one of the things was like, what's your favourite movie? And he was like, he came in real confident and cocky and was like, my favourite movie is Kung Fu Panda. I'm not just a big fat panda, I'm the big fat panda. And I was like, this is such a little shit. Like, this is so lame. It's so lame to see people quote, I don't know, that sounds real bad, but there's something about it that was just like...
This fucking little kid trying to have a good time and win some prizes.
I guess it is just that, but I don't know, it was still like... I feel weird when, like, someone quotes a dumb catchphrase from a movie as if it, like, emotionally affected them, and it's not like wonderful dialogue. It's like a dumb little catchphrase.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's like, I know how much it's like pulling teeth getting these kids to like say shit like that.
Right, okay.
Where you're like,
what's
just
your favorite quote?
Film. Yeah, like, what's your favorite film? And they're like, oh, I don't really watch movies. It's like, well, okay, what's the last movie you watched?
Yeah.
Kung Fu Panda. Okay, did you like it? Yeah. Oh, say it's your favorite film. Okay, what's the thing from it? And then just like, okay, no, and then they do it like 5 times and be like, no, like, yeah, like really have fun with it. And
yeah. Fair enough. All right, I'm sorry, little kid from Sticky TV. It might not have ever been Sticky TV. It was a long time ago, so maybe I'm
AJ, that little kid was me.
So while watching these movies, and this is a bit of advanced cult popture for those who haven't listened to a lot of our podcast, while watching these movies, you messaged me and mentioned the rules of a trilogy that are set up in the Scream films. So a couple months back...
I remember messaging you that.
Yeah. A couple months back, we watched the 4 Scream films, which if you haven't seen are very meta and very... essentially each film will give you a list of instructions on how to do whatever film that is in a series. So the first one is how to do a horror movie, the second one's how to do a sequel, third one's how to do a trilogy, fourth one's how to do a reboot. And while the Scream rules mainly apply to horror films and not film in general, there is one rule, especially that was sort of brought up in the third film, that does actually kind of apply here, and that's that the third film in a series usually will go back to the start. It'll go back to the origins. You know, forget everything you thought you knew, because there's some kind of like, I guess, retconning that happens often in third chapters. And you messaged me during the second film and you were like, I feel like this should be part 3.
This is without having seen the third.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But having seen the third film, would you agree it is way more third chapter than the second.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
I didn't know about the whole Panda thing. I knew nothing about the third one. But
yeah.
Like, the second and third film kind of set up an arc about Poe's family that's not really used in the first one at all. So it's kind of cool that it does that, yeah.
Yeah, so while you were saying you thought the second one should be the third one, I kind of thought that the second one should be the first film. Because no one likes an origin film. like Marvel are straight up
I do.
skipping them these days because maybe it's because we've seen Spider-Man's origins too much. But I do think this would veto a major problem, which I'm ready to be proved wrong on because I have thought it over. I've roly-polied it in my head like a panda rolling down a hill, and I keep going like, well, it kind of does do this, but it kind of doesn't. And it's an argument that you heard a lot with The Force Awakens in the first film, and that's that Poe just kind of becomes good at kung fu.
Right, so as a Mary Sue.
Yeah, the central problem of Kung Fu Panda 1 is that Poe is an obese, food addict who obviously wouldn't be the greatest Kung Fu master alive, but yet he's been ordained to be. And his master, Shifu, doesn't know what to do about it, and he's like, he can't be the master, and then he's like, all right, I'll have a go training him. He works out that he's motivated by food, and so he trains him using food. Canonically, you get one training sequence in that film. You get one sequence where Shifu teaches him how to do kung fu through motivating him with food. And then he defeats the bad guy. And it's not like his final battle with Tai Lung undersells this. Like, there are moments where he falls and sits on Tai Lung's head, because he's fat, so that's horrible, and he manages to get something up a big mount, like a big tower, because he pretends it's food and is able to get up there without any problem. But the kind of gotcha moment of the final battle in the first film is Poe grabs Tai Lung's finger, and it's like a kung fu finger hold thing where you hold
Wuxi death. Yeah, finger hold.
There you go. And you hold their finger and then you flex your pinky and they literally die.
We find out in the third film what happens to them.
Yeah, they get sent to the spirit realm, which is heaven, ostensibly, I guess. Or hell, whatever. The shadow realm, Jimbo. But
sick meme reference, dude.
So he goes skadoosh and banishes Tai Lung. But that's not what makes Poe special. The overrunning theme of the Kung Fu Panda trilogy is it's not particularly groundbreaking in terms of morals to stories, but it's basically you have a gift, you have something that makes you special, and you should stick to that. And it's done through the lens of kung fu, what elements of kung fu you get at. So we learn towards the end of Kung Fu Panda 1 that Poe can use his, I guess, weight and insatiable hunger as a way to defeat villains. And then he defeats the villain by doing something he's not even really trained in doing. He just suddenly knows how to do.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is the finger hold is a payoff to a setup earlier in the film.
But I guess, and I understand that, but I kind of would prefer if it was a payoff involving him eating or being fat, because it feels like that's what the movie's pushing.
Yeah, I get that, but you also have to remember that this isn't just some bumbling idiot fell into just happened to be at the choosing ceremony of the Dragon Warrior. This is a lifelong fan of kung fu.
Sure.
And so it's he does know all these things. I think that adds an element to his character, that it's he has this amazing respect for kung fu as well.
Well, I guess that's why I was saying that maybe the second should be the first, because in that he's just one of the kung fu warriors, and I think seeing a fat dude who's inexplicably as good as all the skinny, strong people wouldn't necessarily need that much explanation, because it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, but in the second and third one, it is still kind of
Yeah, it rounds. What I've also got written down in my notes here is that the third film ends with a battle of every panda fighting one like big bad guy, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, because they use the things they learned they're good at. Like one of the pandas is real good at hugging, so he just grabs all the bad guys and hugs them till he crushes them to death, presumably. And like there's other ones that are, you know, good at I don't know, slingshotting themselves, which I guess has nothing to do with being fat, but it's what they're good at. Or Poe learns that pandas move around by rolling, so a lot of them just roll over the bad guys. What I'm saying is the third one, I feel like the third one gets it right, where if the message of your film is everyone has something to contribute, the third one is a really good showing of that. Yeah.
Right. All right. Yeah, no, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I think for me there's enough what's it called? Like, yeah, the payoff of he's good at this because he's fat and likes food. It's enough for me, I think, in the first one.
That's fair. I don't know. It's fine. It's a good movie. I think I was just not in the mood when I watched it, maybe, and was looking for
like,
things.
I get what you mean, and like maybe, and I know like there is a TV series of this, but I think that like maybe if the first one was like the pilot episode for a TV show, so it's like just getting the mythology out of the way, like, oh, he's one of the kung fu guys, but he's not meant to be, and then things like the second film would be like, you know, just one of their big adventures kind of thing. So it's not like, you know, you're not spending as much time on the fact that like, why is he doing this? It's like, you know, say this ran for like 10 seasons.
Yeah.
You know, it's only like in the first episode they're like, he's not supposed to be one of the kung fu guys, but then he just is for the rest of the show.
Yeah.
But like, he's fat.
Yeah. So another kind of smaller issue that I thought we could discuss together is, do you think 2008, when this film came out, was a bit too late to do the real power was inside you all along twist? Because the big setup is that he's trying to get the scroll that'll teach him how to do the dragon warrior, be the dragon warrior, and when he gets it, it turns out it's like a reflective surface because it's being yourself. But it's like, people must have been making fun of that trope by the time that this movie came out.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I want to like yes and your
but I'm objectively
these
wrong.
Are the same kind of movies that were around at that time, and they would have told it to fuck off. But like, I mean, it is a kids movie, like, and I know, like, you know, we always kind of like, you know, try and meet a movie on its own terms, and you know, look at movies objectively and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, it is a kids movie, and like, I'm sure there are still kids movies coming out these days that have like just that straight of a moral, but it's the ones that transcend that, like your Lego movies and whatever, that the creme de la creme that are the ones that rise to the top and are kind of seen as the only ones out there because they're the ones that stand the test of time. Yeah. Whereas because Kung Fu Panda had another 2 movies and they're considered to be, you know, pretty decent, that, you know, the first one, which maybe was on the tail end of when it's acceptable to have like a moral that's that, you know, what do you call it?
Simple.
On the nose as well.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, hey, let's talk about something real good about Kung Fu Panda. One thing that I really appreciated about the Kung Fu Panda series is how devoted the voice actors were. Like, the vocal performances in this series are great, and maybe that's just because we're still recovering from a month's worth of talking dog movies, but I think it's a real good indicator of good voice acting, looking at how a character will laugh and how convincing that laugh is. Like, I feel like Air Buddies films were full of people literally reading the words ha ha ha. They'd be like ha ha ha. Whereas something like in Kung Fu Panda 2, you've got Gary Oldman's Lord Shen, whose laugh is like it's real. He goes all out with it, man. It's a real good performance. And it's so real and distinct.
There's really good voice acting in these films.
Yeah. And I actually thought Shen was voiced by Mark Hamill when he first showed up because it sounded almost Joker-esque. And I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, it's old Gary Oldman. So yeah, I don't know. I just if you haven't seen the Kung Fu Panda movies, go watch them for the voice acting because the performance is real good. I really like James Hong, who plays Poe the panda's adopted goose father. He does a really, really good job, and it really felt like he was like ready to party. Like, yeah, put me in a kids movie because
Yeah. Did you recognize him from anything else?
yeah, I watched a No Small Parts video on him, so he's in quite a few things.
He's in Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He's the guy that, like, for people that have, like, don't know, in the first Blade Runner when Rutger Hauer's character goes to, like, the frozen wasteland of the guy who, like, makes stuff, and he's like the guy that just makes eyes.
Yeah,
and it's like,
it's a
he
good role.
sounds the exact same. Huh?
It's a good role. It's a very James Hong role to be the eye salesman. Yeah, so here's some. I managed to dig up some voice acting behind the scenes stuff. And by dig up, I mean I went to IMDb and looked at the trivia section. So for the first film, Dustin Hoffman, who plays Shen Fu, he had a contract. He had a stipulation in his contract which allowed him to do additional voice recording sessions without hindrance should he be unsatisfied with his performance. Which feels, it feels like that comes from an experience where he couldn't do that or something. I don't know. It's very specific, but it's a cool. It shows that they really care about what they're doing. And also, I found that Hoffman also tutored Jack Black on his performance in the nighttime stairway argument scene in the first film. So that's pretty cool. According to his online diary, Jackie Chan, who plays Monkey in the film, recorded his voiceovers during a single 5-hour recording session in LA on October 15th, 2007. He recorded his lines for the Mandarin and Cantonese versions too. And this is interesting because Jackie Chan must have like 4 lines in the first film.
No, like, honestly, across all 3 movies, there was, because I was like, oh, I know Jackie Chan's one of them, and it wasn't until the 3rd movie that he says something, and I was like, oh, that's Jackie Chan. Like, the other
literally
ones
the only. Yeah,
because we haven't mentioned. So there's the like Warriors 5 or whatever they're called is Angelina Jolie, Lucy Liu, Seth Rogen, David Cross, and Jackie Chan.
Yeah. The only line I can remember from Jackie Chan is when they're like, they're jade zombies. And then both Poe and Monkey go, zombies, jinx. It's like that's the only Jackie Chan line I can remember, and that's in the 3rd film. So while we're talking about the voice acting, which again, if I can just do some quick shout outs, Jack Black, shout out to my buddy Jack Black, Black certainly knows his character, and I think that's certainly what these films were sold on, is the awesomeness, like aesthetic, like this is awesome. Like the TV shows are called like Legend of Awesomeness or something.
Yeah,
like that.
the thing about Jack Black as well is that like it's like similar to School of Rock. It's like one of those roles that's just like, it's perfect for Jack Black.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
and because not only does he like look kind of like, he's that like high energy fat guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just Jack Black. But then one of my favorite bits of voice acting from Jack Black is like at the end of the 3rd one when he goes to do the finger hold again and he does the skadoosh wagging his pinky thing, and it doesn't work because it only works on mortals. But he's like, skadoosh. All right, that didn't work. Let me just give that one more try.
There is a lot of stuttering in the 3rd one, particularly. I noticed that was like uncommon for voice acting. Yeah, it's good.
All right, should we give that one more try?
There's a lot of someone will say something and then they'll be like like kind of voice acting, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Felt very natural and improvised. All this being said, do you think Bryan Cranston and J.K. Simmons have too similar voices to appear in a film together?
Yeah, I was going to say that actually. I was going to say that early on, that like the villain in the 3rd one is voiced by J.K. Simmons doing his best Bryan Cranston impersonation. Like, J.K. Simmons doesn't necessarily sound like Bryan Cranston, but he does so much in this movie. It's so weird. Like, you get little moments of like when he like yells and stuff like that you get the real J.K. Simmons voice coming through, and it's like, yes, like he's just got such a great voice. But then like the rest of it's just like, why do you sound like Bryan Cranston? Yeah,
when for this podcast, especially when you start watching a animated film, same thing happened with the Shrek films, is you watch it for a bit and then you learn all the characters and then you immediately Google the movie to find out who's playing who. And after the villain was introduced in Kung Fu Panda 3, I googled the movie and saw Bryan Cranston's name come up, and I was like, oh, so he's playing the villain. And then it was like, he plays Lee, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not what they said his name was. And to like scroll down and find J.K. Simmons in there. Yeah.
I actually did the same thing, I think, because I was like, who voices the bad guy? Because I thought Bryan Cranston,
Yeah. So next to the awesome voice acting in this film, and like I loved. I think Gary Oldman might have been my favorite. Like he just brings such a like Gary Oldman's so cool, man, and the fact that he was like, yeah, I'll play like a despicable peacock, like it's just a very Jafari kind of Scar from Lion King almost kind of voice that he brings, and it should get more notoriety than it does. So next to voice acting, we have some pretty awesome animation in this film. Kung Fu Panda is somewhat known for combining a lot of 2D and 3D animation. That's literally all I've written for the notes, but I know that, Richard, you wanted to say something about the animation.
Yeah, I just think like there's, especially in the third one, it's got some beautiful animation. Like they go to the spirit realm and it's got like a distant 2D background that's like a sunburst, but then it's very like minimal in terms of color and stuff like that. And there's also some of the Jade zombie stuff like looks really nice.
Do you know that the Jade zombies move at less frames per second than every other character in the film?
Yeah. So it's like it looks kind of jittery.
Yeah.
And like what else? Yeah, there's like a training montage in the third one as well that's like really stylized and uses like 2D animation and things like that, and like there's all the flashback scenes in the second one were like traditionally hand drawn as well, which like really suits it. Yeah.
Did you ever watch Samurai Jack?
No, I didn't, but I'm aware of the art style.
Yeah. This feels like the successful film version of Samurai Jack, because the art styles are definitely in the same ballpark as is the subject matter. All right, moving on to a little section that we do sometimes, Richard, called Dumb IMDb Trivia. This one isn't as dumb as some of the IMDb trivia that we've encountered in the past. For those that don't know, you can add trivia to IMDb if you want, so you get things like people will just summarize the plot of the movie, and that's their trivia. But this was in the first film's trivia section, and it said, Jack Black was nearly 40 years old when he voiced the young Poe. Who gives a shit? Of course he was nearly 40 years old.
He was, because Poe's 20, I believe.
He's 20 in the third film, which is the one time they mention it, and I was like, that feels weirdly intentional to mention how old he is, but all right.
Well, yeah, they just talk about finding him as a baby like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not that dumb.
No, it's more like, I feel like at 25, I don't think 40's that old anymore. Like most directors get their start at 40.
I think if it had been like he was 40 when he voiced the 20-year-old Poe, that's more interesting. But just saying young.
The young Poe. Like, we guess he's young, and this is the first film. They didn't know he was young then. That's just implied. Cool. So that's all the dumb trivia I could find. Most of the trivia is pretty top notch.
There was one that I saw when I was doing my research that I quite liked. That was like the third one is the only Kung Fu Panda film which came out in a year where Seth Rogen didn't also do voiceover work for a live action film, because
so specific.
Paul came out in 2008, and then the Spiderwick Chronicles came out in 2011.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. The other one I saw was Lord Shen, the peacock. He's the only villain out of the three movies that actually like straight up dies. Yeah, the other ones get banished to the Shadow Realm, the Spirit Realm. because by the way, Tai Lung, the villain from the first film, he just disappears. You don't actually know he gets skadooshed and just disappears. And then in the third film, Kai has. So what Kai does is he collects the chi of other kung fu masters, and they turn into little jade talismans, and on his like belt buckle he's got all of them, and one of them is Tai Lung, which is really interesting because that means that he would have sucked the chi out of him in the Shadow Realm itself, the spirit universe. So we talk about titles a lot on this podcast, and if there was ever a series that could have awesome subtitles but didn't, it'd probably be this one, right? Like, I feel like particularly martial arts movies, there's a lot of title tropes that, I mean, the TV shows, they have names. Let me go say the short films and TV shows are called like Secrets of the Masters, Secrets of the Scroll, Legends of Awesomeness, The Paws of Destiny. And it's like, of course they're called that. But these are just 1, 2, 3, Kung Fu Panda, and then Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3. However, the original Kung Fu Panda 2 did have a subtitle, and it was changed, actually. There are a couple of them. The first one was apparently going to be called Kung Fu Panda 2 Pandemonium.
Classic.
Which would have probably been better for the third film, considering the amount of pandas in it. This was changed. Yeah. It's absolute pandemonium. This was changed in 2010 to the Kaboom of Doom, which I don't know how that applies to the story, but it's on brand.
Yeah, I remember hearing about Kung Fu Panda Kaboom of Doom, and it was one of those things that I like until seeing that written down again. It was like just in the annals of my mind somewhere. Maybe it was like a video game or something like that.
Maybe I can find.
Because I feel like Kaboom of Doom was something that I was like aware of.
Video games were called Legendary Warriors, Shadow of Legendary Legends. That's a funny name for a game. No, there's no Kaboom of Doom, but I remember Kick-Ass 2 was called Balls to the Wall for years as well.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know. I didn't really have much to talk about here beyond, like, it would have been pretty simple to go Kung Fu Panda 2, Year of the Peacock. Maybe they didn't want cock in their kids' film title. I don't know. But
that's true.
My point is that they're right there, guys. They're there for the taking, and you didn't take them. All right. So continue the franchise now. Our final segment for the show. The Kung Fu Pandas franchise has been continued in plenty of ways, as I mentioned before. This includes 5 video games, 5 short films, 1 live arena show, 1 soon-to-be 2 theme park attractions, and 1 soon-to-be 2 TV shows, essentially leaving no original ideas for us to pitch on this podcast. And if you thought you could just pitch another sequel, well, they have us beat there as well, Richard, because even before the release of the third film, the idea of doing 6 total Kung Fu Panda films was being floated around by DreamWorks. The last thing they've said on it is that's still accurate, that they're going for 6. And, you know, with the irregular release schedule, there could be another one in a couple of years and it wouldn't be out of the ordinary at all. So, by the way, one of the short films is a Christmas-themed one, and it's called Panda Paws, which really brought up some bad memories from the Airbud cinematic universe with puppy paws. But I guess at least Panda rhymes with Santa. So it's not completely removed from the name like Puppy Paws was. You hear Puppy Paws, you don't go, oh, right, like Santa Claus. Whereas if you said Panda Paws really fast, you kind of hear Santa Claus.
You'd be like, sorry, just say Santa Claus. Panda Paws.
And it's real interesting. If you're interested, we will probably cover some of these on our Film Franchise Follow-Ups Patreon exclusive podcast, which you should all go and purchase with your mum's credit card because our audience are under 13. The chronology of the Kung Fu Panda franchise is the first film, then a short film called Secrets of the Furious 5, then the holiday special, which is called Kung Fu Panda Holiday, then Kung Fu Panda 2, then Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, which is I think it's a Netflix show, or it's a TV show anyway. Then Kung Fu Panda Secrets of the Masters, which is a short film. Then Kung Fu Panda Secrets of the Scroll, which is another short film. Then Kung Fu Panda 3, the film. Then Panda Paws, followed by Kung Fu Panda The Paws of Destiny, which will be coming out later this year on Netflix, I think. So, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So, do you have a continue the franchise?
Yeah. Did you steal the one I said today? Because I'll say that.
Do that one. That one was good. I didn't do that one.
All right. Well, yeah, because we were talking today about how it's just so hard because there's already so much stuff. So I was like, continue the franchise. You could do is to have to teach a real panda kung fu as a publicity stunt.
Yeah. No, that's good. It would work as well. It'd be the thing
like,
that's
that would
more
get me
famous.
excited about Kung Fu Panda again.
Yeah, because I am dried out on Kung Fu Panda right now.
But my actual continue the franchise was so chronologically. So I did kind of zone out when you were saying it. So, but Kung Fu Panda is we haven't seen anything from before Kung Fu Panda, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So
other than flashbacks within the films.
Yeah. I'd like to see a TV show. Well, not necessarily like to see, but I'm pitching a TV show that's a prequel to before Po is introduced.
Right, like the Furious
So-
Five.
Yeah, it's just like the Furious Five, just them going on adventures. And I mean, I'm sure the TV show's better because it has Poe, but it would be cool to see a TV show of what makes them so legendary. And I mean, maybe Poe could show up because he's like such a huge fan of them. But yeah, like just seeing them going out on adventures, being celebrities. I mean, it is kind of implied that they were all kind of boring before Poe got there, but we don't really know much about any of their histories.
Yeah. You could do a Master Shifu origin series, the Red Panda, because he's quite a powerful character, especially in the first film. So,
and we
all
see
right,
his training with Oogway and shit.
Yeah. Oogway's the tortoise, which is Chinese for a word that kind of sounds like tortoise, according to the various trivia sections I read. All right, so my continue the franchise idea is to do a crossover film with Kung Fu Panda and Shrek. This idea is supported by the fact that Poe and his father Lee actually travel past the same rock formation on their way to Panda Village in the third film, which Shrek and Donkey travel past in the first Shrek film on their way to Princess Fiona and the castle. We also know from the Puss in Boots spin-off film in the Shrek universe that universe encompasses other cultures beyond its own medieval world. So if Spain exists in the Shrek universe, why can't China, Richard? And this would potentially be a great way. This would potentially be a great way to reintroduce Shrek into the current zeitgeist ahead of his re-emergence in Shrek 5, which is still slated for like 2020 or 2021.
And gonna like reinvent the franchise, apparently.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are humans that exist in Shrek's world, but there are also talking animals that, I mean, they're surprised that Donkey can talk in the first one, but then no one gives a shit in later episodes. So, Shrek and Kung Fu Panda vs. Shrek.
What would it actually be about, though?
I think you want to put Shrek in China. You don't want to put Kung Fu Panda in medieval world, Shrek world.
Because far away.
Exactly.
If they have appeared on screen or like in some of the characters together. There's like an ad, one of those like you're not you when you're hungry ads, is like Shrek and Kung Fu Panda.
Really?
And it's from like this year.
Whoa, that's I hate when that happens. Air New Zealand, the New Zealand.
Oh god.
What do you call them? Airline agency? Airline service. Yeah,
just
airline. I was going to say Air Force, but it's not the fucking Air Force. So they pride themselves on doing like funny safety videos. I'm sure every country has these as well, where it'll be like how to put your seatbelt on a plane, but it's the Hobbit themed because the Hobbit's coming out. But they did a Men in Black one in like 2015 or something, and it was like,
and they got ripped torn for it as well. From
they got ripped
3.
torn from it. And when did Men in Black 3 come out?
2012.
I'm looking it up. Men in Black 3 came out. Yeah, it is 2000. You're right. I should have trusted you. So you've got it's 2015, and you're watching a safety video that's themed to like, I mean, I wouldn't say Men in Black is a particularly timeless pop cultural touchstone, but even if it was going to be, it'd be in 2012 when the third film came out, not in 2015.
And also, because the whole point, because to be fair, our New Zealand's rugby team, the All Blacks, are referred to as like, they talk about the Men in Black and stuff like that. Enough. So there is that that connection. But there's also they managed to get ripped torn for the video, and this is like in 2015. Who was in Men in Black 1 and 2, but not in the third one.
It's even better. It's so funny.
And also like one of the most recent ones they did, like the A-list celebrity they got to meet, it was Cuba Gooding Jr. The Land Before Time 13's Cuba Gooding Jr.
So good. All right, so that's about all that we've got on old KFP. But before we skadoosh this podcast to the spirit realm, we do need to select our next franchise. And this week is our very first Patreon pick. So just to reiterate, if you want to dictate our lives, then move to Russia? No, I don't know. I don't know world politics.
That was a strange reference. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, no, it was fine. Go to patreon.com/cultpoption if you donate $1 per month. That's so freaking little. Like, it's such a small amount of money. If you donate that, you can actually comment on a post every month. We'll be like, what franchise should we cover next? If you comment, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and it gets the most likes, then that's what we'll do. So, Richard, I know we don't have a lot on there because we only just launched it the other day, but what is the most liked franchise currently on our Patreon?
All right, I know what it is, but I'm gonna, for dramatic effect, I'm actually gonna look.
Well,
Patreon.
while you do that, I will just tell people that also if they don't want to pay or if they just like us anyway or whatever, then go check out facebook.com. It's a really good website where you can make a profile, you can tell people about, you can post statuses every day, and you can also go to the Cult Popture Facebook page on there and you can like us, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube, and we're also on Instagram and SoundCloud and iTunes and all those places, so please follow Cult Popture at all your places. All right, what are we doing next franchise?
All right, next franchise. We are going to be covering the 10 Hellraiser films.
Oh boy. Thank you to our patrons who suggested and voted on that, and I think you can like your own comment, and I'm pretty sure that's what happened there.
Yeah, but you can't look at who liked them.
Yeah. Patreon, what are you doing? So anyway, that's something you guys can go do now. But before we do leave and start watching 10 horror films of varying quality, which will fit nicely into our sort of series of the classic horror films we've done, like Freddy vs. Jason, and
Yeah, these are cool ones to know the full
Scream.
mythology of.
we are going to do some fan mail, so feel free to leave if you don't give a shit, but if you did comment or something in the last 2 months, because that's how long it's been, we're going to read them out now. So, first, Richard, do you remember when we did Jurassic Park? Because that has 2 comments on it since we last checked. So, on our YouTube version of Jurassic Park, Ewan Makes Movies commented, Gus plus Cult Popture equals goodness. Gus Johnson was our guest star on that show, who is blown up since he wouldn't do it now, man.
Yeah, he's like collabing with iDubbbz.
Yeah, he's done. Oh, we did not ride the coattails of his fame. That's for sure.
Yeah, he doesn't even follow us on Twitter.
Yeah, so if you're listening, Gus, follow us on Twitter, dude. Another comment on that video was from someone called A. Rickle, who said, Yo, Gus, dude, I'm literally your biggest fan, dude. You're my hair. Your videos really help center me in the moment. You make me not feel alone wanting to be myself. I don't know why we're reading that. That feels like something Gus should know and not us. Anyway,
you should reply and be like, but how do you feel about us?
Yeah, I should actually. I will go check it. I will. On the Raid episode, another very old episode we did, Ewan Makes Movies commented, "This podcast really is a wonderful time." Thank you, Ewan. Your constant compliments to us, they touch our hearts, man. Thank you for scouring backwards through the podcast to the Raid from like over a year ago. It means a lot.
And also, if you're looking for back catalog episodes, the Raid's actually is a real good episode. I listened to it recently, and I was like, yeah, because AJ was like, "This is our worst episode," and I was like, "No, this is real good."
It's not our worst.
It's so funny. Like, we had David Correos guest star, and it's. Yeah, we're just none of us are on the same wavelength. Like, Dave's real into the films, AJ's running it, but not really into them, and I'm just trying to have a good time.
Yeah. So on the sort of ancillary episode we did called Monday's Mail and More Scream, YouTuber Isaac Mount commented, what might be one of my favourite comments we've ever got, Richard. He said, "Hey guys, just wanted to say your podcast is the highlight of my week. If you're watching a franchise that sounds entertaining, me and my girlfriend will watch along. Also, if you have a gold standard for us, it's either Twilight or Beethoven, but it's all gold. So, go back and listen to Twilight or Beethoven, because apparently those are real good episodes. But I'm touched to know that someone...
That's cool to know people watch along as well.
Yeah, they play at home. That's amazing. On our Look Who's Talking episode on YouTube, Tim Tarbor123 says something which I didn't remember when I pasted this in here, but he says, since you asked in the video, I looked it up and there doesn't appear to be a sequel to Karate Dog, which is weird since I vaguely remember a sequel being advertised on ABC Family way back in 2005. Probably just a bad memory since the original film premiered on ABC Family as well. Look, I got no idea what you're talking about. Tim.
I'm pretty sure I brought up Karate Dog at some point and I was like, fuck, does that have a sequel? Because then we have to add it to the list.
Right. On the Facebook post for Look Who's Talking, Eric Peterson commented and he said, just remember if you ever do an American Cult Popture tour to stop over in Denver and have me on. Got a little bit too excited when the joke was made that you'd do something like this. I have to say, in the Scream franchise, I loved hearing you guys trip over your words and bliss over actually enjoying a franchise for once. A bit of diametric result in this franchise, it seems. I honestly cannot believe AJ spent 55 New Zealand dollars on something that terrible, though. When listening to the audio clip you shared, there was some genuine wisdom right there. He's talking about Baby Talk, the Look Who's Talking TV show. Might be more powerful as an audio clip rather than a horrible rendering of a 90s TV show via VHS. Very true. But on that subject of us doing an American tour, Eric, hey, there's actually a way... there's a way you could, I guess, in the long term fund that if you guys donate to our Patreon. All right, so we did a podcast on the state of Star Wars with Rowan a wee while ago, and there are so many comments on that, which I don't want to read out because there's so many of them, but if you go find the Facebook post for it, you can read them there, because it just got real intense, which is weird that, like, our mail section is too sacred of a place for our most discussed podcast to find its place, but we don't have time. There's a lot of really, really great thoughts and ideas on that episode, so I'd recommend going and reading that Facebook post. On the Cats and Dogs episode, Ewan Makes Movies commented, oh, hell yes, new FFF equals good time every time. Tim Tarbor commented, Earbud was one of those series I was waiting for you guys to roll. I was curious how the hell they got 18-ish movies out of that concept. Well, you can find out, Tim, if you listen, and you probably did because that was a month ago that you commented that. If you go back and listen to our four, was it 4 or 5? Earbud, four films. Yeah, it was 4.
5 was Mission Impossible. It was 2.5 hours
that's right. Eric commented, yeah, bro, hate to be a stick in the mud, but both films had things crawl under the skin. I don't know what he's talking about. Richard was right the first time before you corrected him. The Scarab, yeah.
Evolution, and you guys were like, no, it's not Evolution.
Oh, right, it's The Mummy. The Scarab gets under the skin in The Mummy. Love that movie so much, but in Evolution they had to go in rectally and get the bug out that was under his skin. Classic. Well, that's a comment that I wish I remembered more context around. And on Instagram, McGriff said he said that AJ should release his James Bond theme song renditions on SoundCloud. Feel free to remix them to any budding remixes out there. One thing that we did for a little bit, we will do more, but I ran out of material. We've been making little videos for some of our best podcast clips, and on the Shrek Machete Order video, someone named Dagan Knoll commented, this was surprisingly insightful. Someone named Isn't Google Just the Worst commented Shrek, because that's how we say Shrek. Richard, Shrek. Someone named Infamous said, thank you YouTube for this gold recommendation, and someone said, K Gamer, I love this as a video. It's like the only good part of a movie podcast. I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult, but we'll take it. On the Movies Who Changed Directors podcast, Eric said, you can read the title two ways. I definitely thought it meant movies that changed directors forever. Not that they literally changed it to a different director. And we wrote, catch that next time on the Cult Popture podcast. And he said, maybe we can get an answer to the age-old question. Who is the lightning fast responses to Cult Popture? AJ or Richard? It's probably both of us. I don't know. It's whoever gets there first. You can you can probably tell by how much sarcasm is in the reply, because I'm quite genuine, whereas Richard will make fun of our listeners when he replies to them.
That's pretty accurate. Like you tend to do all the replying on YouTube, though.
Yeah, that's true. And also, if you follow us on Instagram, you'll see that we post photos of us watching the movie whenever we're watching the different movies, and you can tell who's doing that as well, because mine will be like, oh, that's a cool shot, and Richard will be like, how can I make this the dumbest fucking thing in the world? Scott Dorr, he also commented on the movies who changed directors post.
That's one of those things we've never spoken about. But, like, it's 100% true. Like, yeah, you actually go through and look at them and you see, like... Oh, the Kung Fu Panda did some pretty cool ones.
Yeah.
I think,
not the first one you did. It was just a zoomed in.
It was so stupid. But the other two were cool.
Check out Instagram for more results for this.
And then you comment who you think took the photo.
Yeah. Well, you can tell by the TV as well. Scott Dorr commented,
know what our TVs look like,
on the movies who changed directors episode, and said, I listened to the end when they would bring up The Hobbit, but it never came. Yeah, Richard, I wasn't on that episode. Not my fault.
Do you know?
Not
actually,
my fault.
I had more notes about The Hobbit than anything else on that podcast, but it was like, so I had them like in bullet points, and then I think it was like, I did 1, then 2, then 3, and then 3 segued real nicely into 5, and I was like, I'll come back to 4, which was The Hobbit, and I just forgot about it.
Nice.
Even though it's like the biggest one.
All right, on Earbud, on our Facebook post, Eric commented, oh man, can I just say that first supersonic run-on sentence that AJ did in this podcast where he repeated himself talking very fast was actually incredibly impressive. I rewound it and listened again. Second, as I continue the franchise, I do this, an origin story starring the first domesticated dog of ancient times and the sport that he contributed to, dog fighting, and a heart-pumping story filled with intrigue, action, and pause in this installment of the Earbud series, Bite Club takes a bow. Wow. Very good, Eric. And that run-on sentence, I believe, was something like, is this a real Earbud movie, or is this just something that was rumoured but not substantiated by, like, good sources? I can't remember.
You started off really strong just then.
Brent, our friend Brent, he commented and said, Richard Martin on the acting abilities of someone who probably hasn't mastered using utensils yet. It's actually unforgivable, which is how you describe one of the child actors in Earbud. Okay, on Ear Buddies, Ewan Makes Movies commented again. He said, because of this podcast, I bought and watched Ear Buddies. I have no regrets. That's amazing. That's such a good stamp to put on society, man. On our Facebook post, Craig Major, who's one of our patrons, shout out to Craig, he commented, Facebook comment useless trivia, useless trivia. I tried to say statistics and trivia at the same time.
Stativia.
Sorry, you're right. Ear Buddies alum Richard Reel and Bill Fabergaga both appeared in the controversial, currently banned in Australia / New Zealand Larry Clark film Ken Park. This connects the Ear Buddies universe with a film that opens with a kid blowing his head off at a skate park and ends with another murdering his grandparents, having earlier jerked off to professional tennis in the most graphic autoerotic asphyxiation scene ever filmed. Sam Page replied to Craig and said, which were they in first? Craig said Ken Park was like 2002/03-ish, I guess. And then he said, bonus fact, Reel played a character in Dr. Dan, a pro-lifer who murders abortionists in a different controversial director Todd Stolz's Palindromes. Sam said, how amazing would it be if the casting director was so impressed by the performances in Ken Park that they cast them in Ear Buddies? Craig says, I bloody love this idea. That's exactly what happened in my headcanon. And then I commented and said, Richard Reel plays Santa in Search for Santa Paws. So that's fun.
So yeah, I got in there as well.
Sam also said trivia. When we hear AJ let the cat out, the sound effects user actually a Foley pack included an academic version of Sony Vegas 6.0. That's not true. I was actually letting the cat out, and I actually had to let the cat out again before we recorded this episode. On the Santa Paws episode, Brent Taylor commented and said, "So if these dogs were named by humans, how did they get such fitting names given that the humans can't hear the dogs talk?" Well, Brent, Christmas dogs can talk. And
okay, we're talking about ear buddies. Like,
you name someone. No, he's talking about Santa Paws.
all right.
You name someone stupid idiot, they're going to grow up thinking they're a stupid idiot as well. So maybe if you name someone Charity, they'll grow up being charitable. I don't know.
No, they're going to grow up to be a stripper.
Yeah, that's probably true. Or unless they're a dog. On Instagram, someone named Lockie P. Vines commented on the Santa Paws episode, said, "So funny, will you do the MVP series as well?" We were actually going to, and then we were like, it's not canon, so no.
Yeah. And also like, fuck, we needed a break.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do MVP further down the line. There's a much more successful podcaster out there, part of a podcast called Do Go On, which I absolutely love. Matt Stewart started a new podcast recently called Primates, and the first episode was on MVP, and that was like a month before we were scheduled to do it. And I was like, well, this is going to look like we're just copying his content now. So that was part of that decision as well. Not that people are really thinking of us in the same sentence as Do Go On, but still. On the Pup Star episode, Eric commented on Facebook and said, "It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that AJ's photo is on its side in dead, lifeless, prostrate positioning." Ugh.
Prostate.
And Joe Rundle, that's at the average Joe on Twitter, tweeted us and he said there should have been a pit bull named Human in Pupstar, which is great. I also got a message privately on Facebook from one of my mates who was like, you know how you didn't know why the bad guy's name was Bark because it seemed like such a simple name in a movie full of pun-named characters? It's because of Bach, the composer, the like classical composer. And I'm like, oh yeah, I mean he's not a classical character; he's a country western singer.
I don't think it is. Like,
it has to be, man. It has to be.
It's
Bach.
such a weird. Like, it's weird to me. It's weirder that they would name him after Bach than name him after Beck.
We made a video for why Charlie from Twilight is the best character in film. Rachel Kerr commented, "Does this make you guys Team Charlie?" And I said, "Till the day we die." And then someone named Michael Kinley said, "Still a better love story than..." Oh, wait. I like to think he's talking about our love for Charlie. We also made a video on how, if you've seen 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Chief Willoughby, played by Woody Harrelson, is like this weird hot Australian wife in it, and it's never really explained. Someone named K Gamer said, "I'm really, really into this format, but get some better mics, dudes." Well, we have better mics now, K Gamer. You butthole.
Okay, Gamer.
Someone named Sconan Blades commented, "I was very weirded out by this as well. The cock line was part and parcel with her entire WTF existence in the film. I would rather have had him be with someone who maybe used to look like that but was now Woody's age and they have a lot of water under the bridge. In fact, that line could probably sound a lot better from an older, more seasoned woman. The line, of course, being, 'You've got a great cock, Chief Willoughby.' But the Aussie part was just too random. I mean, he is the chief of police, so maybe the hottest woman in town would go for that man in authority type of thing. But I literally spent the first scene with her in it thinking that she was Woody Harrelson's daughter, not just you. I feel like that video is really touching people. Like we've got a few more comments down here that are like everyone being like, yeah. So, but Matt Hastings on Facebook, he actually tried to justify it, which is really awesome. And I'm not making fun. This is a great comment. He said, "The notable quality of Chief Willoughby's manhood reinforces a very important thematic point of the movie. It is a nuanced way of expressing how even when a law enforcement officer is acting at a peak level of performance, as represented by his real nice cock, that near-perfect tool of law enforcement can still fuck society, so to speak. Anne Willoughby's enjoyment of said fucking and Chief Willoughby's illness are emblematic of the township as a whole being willfully ignorant of the hardship that law enforcement causes. Despite its gradual decay, the law enforcement still creates a facade of safety, security, and happiness for that community to enjoy." That's so good. Nathaniel Nielsen also commented and said, "What about his character from True Detective getting with Alexander Daddario? Always getting good-looking girls." I feel like
that's
it's
in Woody
more,
Harrelson's contract, eh?
yeah. I feel like it's a touch more justified in True Detective because it's like, yeah, she's like looking for a sugar daddy kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, we're nearly at the end of fan mail. On the Mission Impossible episode, Ewan Makes Movies said, well, that's my evening's listening sorted. Thanks, dudes. Thanks, Ewan.
You make those movies.
Brent Taylor commented, I think this is in regards to how the Rotten Tomatoes scores, how like the first Mission Impossible film had like 60%, which we thought wasn't even that good, like not that good of a score. He commented, I think one of the important things to remember about Rotten Tomatoes scores is that when you look at a franchise that spans 25 years, there will be a positive bias towards newer movies. In 1996, Rotten Tomatoes didn't even exist. It wasn't popular until maybe 10 years later, after it was purchased by IGN. Any ratings where people were reviewing non-current movies are going to suffer because of exactly what you talk about in this episode. Movies are best reviewed in their social and cultural context. Ewan Make Movies replied to him. We had a genuine smart conversation happening in our comment section, dude. He said, Brent Taylor, whilst I think it's important to consider the pop cultural and societal factors that inform a particular piece of art and to give context to said piece, I think a posthumous review with several decades distance of the art can be just as, if not more insightful, as one given closer to the release. And Brent replied, Richard. He said, maybe so, but for the reviews to be comparable, you have to have that same distance for Mission Impossible Fallout. Reviewers are still on the hype train for the new one, and while they've had 20 plus years to think about the first one. So reviewing a franchise like this, it's good to remember the subjective nature of all this stuff. And Ewan said, I think some level of subjectivity is unavoidable when it comes to film criticism. Having just seen Mission Impossible Fallout, which was too long and too loud, I certainly ain't feeling any kind of recency bias. Ewan.
Oh, okay. Things are heating up in the comment section.
But that was the last comment. And those are all the comments we've got to read. However, I do want to give a quick shout out to one of our listeners named Randy. He actually sent us like the nicest email last week saying that he really enjoys our stuff. So thank you so much, Randy. This episode is dedicated to you and your girlfriend.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
really,
who like listening
really
to us.
Touched us.
So thank you very much, Randy, and thank you very much to all our commenters. Please comment on this episode, and in like 3 months we'll read it out. So anyway, that was the Cop Ops podcast. This was Kung Fu Panda. I'm Alexander Jones.
Join us next time for Hellraiser, and if you want to have a say on what podcasts, what franchises we're going to cover. Also, if you join up to the tier, there's a tier on our Patreon that allows us to you'll have access to generic_movie_podcast.exe. We're going to be releasing the first episode of that in just a few days, but there'll be a post by the time you're hearing this. There'll be a post on our Patreon that if you sign up, you'll be able to see, and you can comment a movie that you want us to watch, and we will record a podcast about it, and you'll have access to that first episode.
Yeah. All right. That's great. Here we go. That's it. Goodbye, everybody. See you next time.
Bye, everyone.